Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I have the honor to introduce our guest speaker. He's a spiritual author, community mentor, dynamic teacher, worldwide traveler. After graduating from University College London with a BSc in Information Management, he adopted full-time monastic life to expand his knowledge, deepen his spirituality, and share these timeless principles with a wider society. He has designed numerous courses on Vedic theology, lifestyle management, and spiritual self-development. He has also authored more than 10 books. Nowadays, he is teaching in universities, corporate firms, government organizations, and spiritual communities, bringing wisdom to the places which need it most. Welcome to Rice University, SB Keshava Swami.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my honor to be with all of you. Everyone's doing good? Wonderful, wonderful. I first came to America in 1994 as a kid, and I haven't been back to America since, so this is the first time and we're traveling around. We've been here for 3 weeks. We began in New York and made our way over to the West Coast, and now we're making our way back over to the East Coast. And I have to say today I feel very, very much at home because I think I brought the London rain with me. Yes. But today I'm really honored to be talking to you about something which I think is so, so important in all of our lives. Perhaps mental health, mental wellness was something which was somewhat of a taboo subject. And nowadays we're realizing that all of us have some level of improvement and some level of help and insights which we all need to improve our mental health. As was mentioned, I began my monastic life at the age of 21. I graduated from university, and I guess I was looking for something that could empower me internally, and so I went on a bit of a spiritual journey at 21. But I think it all kind of kick-started at about the age of 15. And when I was 15, I read a poem, and somehow the poem seemed to resonate with so many feelings within me. And in that poem, which was called The Paradox of Our Times, the writer says, "We have taller buildings, but shorter tempers. We have wider highways, but narrower minds. We have more time, but less attention. We have multiplied our possessions, but we've reduced our values. We buy more, but we enjoy it less. We're more and more connected, but actually we're further and further apart." The writer says we lose our health to get wealth, and then we spend that wealth to try and get our health back. And then the writer says we've conquered outer space, but we're struggling with inner space. And so many of these statements were resonating with my 15-year-old brain that was looking at the world thinking, I think there's more to life than what people are pursuing, and there's more to explore. And so thus began my exploration of spiritual teachings. And today what I'll try to share with you is some of the spiritual teachings that I've learned which very much relate to the mind. And all of us have some level of struggle with the mind, isn't it? Can you put your hand up if you have some struggles with the mind? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So what I'll try to share with you is some of those insights. When I joined the monastery as a 21-year-old, then the monk who was teaching us, as we woke up for the first day in the monastery, he said, "We're going to go to the gym." I said, "Monks go to the gym?" I don't know if I'm ready to do weightlifting and the treadmill. I mean, I came here. He said, no, we're going to go to the mind gym. And every morning, he said, we have to enter the gym, which helps us to upgrade, uplift, elevate, and clarify our own minds. He said, because the world we live in today, people train their body. But how many people train their mind? And it's very, very interesting how so much of our life we invest into the visible parts of our life, the tangible parts that everyone sees, the parts of our life that will gain appreciation and acknowledgement. But how many of us invest in the invisible parts of our life, the things that people can't see? In our first lesson, he told us, don't create a life which just looks good on the outside, but create a life which feels good on the inside. And so it kind of really made a lot of sense. He gave us an analogy which I even remember till today, and I'll do it with you. He said, put your hand up if you have a phone. Have a phone? Yeah. Put your hand up if your phone has ever had a cracked screen. Put your hand up if your phone has ever had a battery which was kind of a bit, knackered, let's say, just to use a good old English word. Put your hand up if you ever had a case on your phone which was a little bit chipped. All of you. Now put your hand up if you ever continued using a phone or kept a phone in which the operating system had crashed. No one. It's interesting. The battery could be exhausted. The screen could be cracked. The case could be chipped. But even with those physical things, we learn to carry on and just use our phone. But the moment the operating system crashes, everything becomes useless. And perhaps it's ironic that in the world today, people do so much to train their body, yet neglect to actually uplift and elevate their mind. And therefore, spiritual teachings and ancient insights really, really help us to do this. I'm not going to drown you in statistics today, but just so we kind of refresh our understanding of what we know is going on in the world. Depression, disorders, bipolar, these are the common things that we find in the world today. In fact, the mind has become the biggest point of 21st century medicine. And the World Health Organization says that in the coming years, the biggest problem in health won't be cancer, won't be heart disease, won't be any physical ailment on that level, but rather it will be complexities and challenges on the mental level. The mind is so powerful that it takes people to extremes. This is an incredible statistic, It's the 10th leading cause of death in the UK, suicide. The mind is so powerful that it can even cause the physical body to die. That's how powerful the mind is. And perhaps even more worrying is that 56% of adults don't have access to any treatment to actually deal with mental health challenges, and even those who do don't find that it really helps or mends what's going on within them. So how do we actually empower the mind? This is a huge point. And here what we're showing you are statistics which are showing the acute causes of lack of mental wellness. But now what I want to show you is that mental health is not something that you either have or you don't have. Some people think, yeah, I'm mentally good, and some people think, no, I'm mentally challenged, I have problems. But actually it's something which is constantly fluctuating, just like your physical health. If you don't do exercise, you could be very, very healthy, but if you don't eat appropriately, if you don't exercise appropriately, don't think that that physical health is going to maintain. And someone could be very physically unfit, but through a regime, they can change the game around. So this is really, really important when talking about mental health, that we don't think it's binary. We understand it's not, it's a constant, it's constantly fluctuating. We can be weak or we can be well. Here are some more closer to home signs that we may have some mental weakness. We may think, I don't have depression, I don't have anxiety, therefore my mental health is good. But actually, if we have a mind in which we're constantly comparing, criticizing, complaining, if we feel the inner critic to be extremely loud, we should understand there's some level of mental weakness. Yet when we exude and when we're able to transform that into compassion, care, collaboration, we can understand that our mental health is very, very good. A sign of mental weakness is the chronic tendency to always seek short-term gratification. We were always told in the monastery, don't give up what you want most for what feels good now. And how many people are able to do that? That requires a very clear mind. That requires a very, very focused mindset that is constantly looking at long-term achievement. Mental weakness is characterized by distraction, the mind being in many, but even we're all here in this room now, how much are we even able to be present in one activity? Have you ever watched one of those movies where the video and the audio is out of sync? Isn't it annoying? Like, how long can you watch a video like that? But sometimes our life is like that. We're here, but our mind is constantly distracted by so many thoughts. But mental wellness means the ability to focus. If you think of a laser beam that's just so focused in one direction that it can penetrate through anything. Controlled by fear, mental weakness. Whereas mental wellness inspired by dreams. Nelson Mandela once said, may your decisions in life reflect your dreams and not be controlled by your fears. How many of the decisions we make are driven by fears? That is a severely limiting approach to life. Mental weakness means we overthink and we procrastinate. Whereas mental wellness, there is analysis. Yes, we look at things from many perspectives, but then we articulate and make a direction. And mental weakness means we're rigid and we're attached. When things don't go according to how we expected them to go, we can't deal with that, those fluctuations. But the world is constantly changing. The world is constantly moving. And the mind which is empowered is able to move and adjust and be able to navigate the various twists and turns and ups and downs of life. That's what it means to be mentally well. Now, we may look at our mind and say, maybe, just maybe, I'm not as well as I thought I was. Maybe it's not just pointing the fingers at all those people who have acute challenges on their mental health, saying they are the ones with the problem. But maybe all of us have some level of difficulty on the level of the mind, because we can look at our own trajectory, our own activity, and ask ourselves, am I on the left or am I on the right? And more importantly, if I would be able to change to this left-hand side, how that would transform my experience of life. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you 3 insights from the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient Sanskrit book of wisdom, which may give you some insight into unassuming things. These 3 things are quite unassuming, but they could shift your mental state. Of course, in the ancient traditions, there is lots of insight into mindfulness, as we had this beautiful exercise today, meditation, and many of you are familiar with those things, so I won't talk about those things today. But rather, what I'll do is share 3 life hacks, if you like, from the Bhagavad Gita, which really give us an insight into how to shift your mental state. And I hope it will be insightful for you. So the first, the Bhagavad Gita is it's a Sanskrit book of wisdom. There's 700 verses. It's a conversation which takes place between 2 characters, Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna is a warrior, and he's just about to embark on a huge battle. And on the battlefield, he almost has a moment of doubt and a moment of bewilderment, and begins asking many, many questions of life. And Krishna, as his charioteer, begins to offer different answers. And this battlefield, of course, is a literal place. You can even go to this place today in India. It's in a place called Kurukshetra. However, this battlefield is also metaphorical, because each one of us are on the battlefield of life, in which there are challenges, obstacles, there are different things that we have to navigate. So in answer to Arjuna's questions, Krishna begins to give insights into how to live an empowered life. He begins to train Arjuna on how to navigate the battlefield in such a way that he can still achieve his purposes. And in relation to today's topic of mental wellness, one of the first insights that Krishna gives is that mental wellness comes from living a regulated lifestyle. One of the biggest problems in the world today is that most people don't have a regulation in their life. There's no balance, there's no routine. Life is constantly fluctuating day to day. And believe it or not, this is one of the biggest causes of problems with mental health. Here in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, regulated habits of eating, sleeping, work, and recreation counteract all physical and mental pain. We very much encourage people to find balance in their life, which is perhaps one of the most difficult things to ask people to do in this day and age. I'm going to do a little survey with all of you, and I just want you to keep a mental count, okay? I'm going to put 20 questions up on the screen, and if you would answer yes or true to any of these statements, give yourself 1 point, okay? And then we're just going to collect up the points and see how you score. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. So here are the questions. Number 1, I don't read books or upgrade knowledge on a daily basis. If that statement is true, give yourself a point. I usually end each day with a huge list of things left to do. If that's true, reward yourself with a point. I feel uncomfortable and uneasy when I have time off and no pressing responsibilities. Say, for example, tomorrow just magically you have 4 hours free. How does that feel to you? Does it feel uneasy, uncomfortable? Do you sometimes feel like, what am I supposed to do now? 4, I regularly have a huge backlog of people to contact and messages to answer. Give yourself a point, if it's true. I feel like all my energy is taken up by work and career, leaving little energy for anything else. Is that true? I lack an overall purpose and direction in life. Do you have a North Star? Do you know what you're trying to achieve? Are you able, when any decision comes up in your life, to reference it to what your ultimate goal is and thereby make conscious decisions to move in a certain direction? Or are we kind of going with the flow? I consciously avoid spending time with others because I have too many things to do. True? Find yourself. Find the roots in the university where you meet the least amount of people, the back door corridors. Too many things to do. I rarely reflect, introspect, and scrutinize my life direction. When was the last time we sat down and said, where am I? Where have I been? Where am I going? What's the trajectory of my life? Do we challenge ourselves? Do we do that kind of introspection? I rarely do charity work or welfare activities which are for the benefit of people I don't know. Do we do activities which are not for our benefit, not for any immediate gain for ourselves, just for the benefit of others? 10. I find it hard to sleep, or I don't get enough sleep. You're counting, right? Lost count. 11. I have a lost friendship over anger or failing to respect the other person. Can you think of any friendships you've lost because of losing your temper? I rarely find myself completely present in the moment. When was the last time you felt completely present, in which you were completely absorbed in that moment? When friends ring me, I rarely have the time to have a friendly chat with them. I feel like I complain and find faults more than being grateful and positive. Okay, last few questions. I have health issues which are related to stress, anxiety, or irregular habits. True? I have not taken a holiday in a year. Shock. Horror. My partner, children, family complain that I don't have enough quality time for them. I don't have time to spend on self-development or exploring things I'm interested in. If an emergency comes up in my life, I find it difficult to adjust. Is life so packed that if you need to adjust, it's very difficult because every moment is taken up? And most of my interactions with people are just about getting things done. Now all of you should have a score. In your own time, we can also provide you with these slides. You can also look at all the statements that you said yes to, true to. And maybe some of those statements will give you some insights into areas of life that we need to bring back into balance. If you have between 0 and 6 points, great, amazing. Give yourself a pat on the back. If you're between 7 and 13, life balance needs adjustment. And if it goes higher than that, good luck. Sometimes we need to do this kind of introspection. Life is moving on. Life is going on. There's so many demands. And as we go from task to task, duty to duty, responsibility to responsibility, we may not be aware that we're losing our mental fitness because we're losing our balance. Because remember, one of the first insights that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita is that if you're able to find balance and regulation in your life, then naturally your mental state will be in a much more uplifted position. And then you will much more likely to be on that left-hand side rather than the right-hand side of mental weakness. So this is the first kind of insight that I'd like to share with all of you for you to think about. Regulation. I'm going to share a couple of more insights with you, and then I'm going to leave some time also to just open it up for questions and see what areas you may have some inquiries or you'd like further information about. The second area that Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita that's an unassuming determinant of mental health is your expectation. What Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, this is a very, very famous verse. He says to Arjuna, perform your duty, remaining detached from the results. You are neither the controller nor the beneficiary. What happens in the world is that people build up huge expectations in their mind. Expectations of the future. Expectations of how other people are going to be. Expectations of how life should unfold. Expectations of the situation that they'll find themselves in. And all of these expectations oftentimes don't come true, as you may have seen. And therefore, great expectations bring great frustrations. And so one of the great arts of life that Krishna talks to Arjuna about is how to live in this world and have plans, but not allow those plans to turn into expectations. We have to plan for the future, we have to vision, we have to predict, we have to try to see what could happen in the coming days, months, and years. Yet when those plans become expectations, then we set ourselves up for frustration, and there is nothing more displacing for our mental state than frustrated expectations. Many of you have seen this model, but in life there's basically said to be two circles, the circle of concern and the circle of influence. The circle of concern encompasses so many aspects of life that concern us, but that we have no control over. For example, the world situation, governmental politics, the weather, financial fortunes, the people around us. And then there is another circle, which is a smaller circle, which is all those things that concern you, but that you can actually influence. Your effort, your mindset, where you put energy and attention. And basically it's said that the gap between the two is the frustration that we feel in life. But the interesting thing is, whichever circle you focus on, that circle expands. And therefore, if we're constantly meditating and having expectations of things which are outside of our influence, then what we will find is that circle of concern will expand more and more and more, and our frustration will grow more and more and more. And therefore, Krishna empowers Arjuna with a very simple but powerful insight. He tells Arjuna, focus on what you can control, which is your own effort. And beyond that, don't have any expectation. And if you do that, then what you'll find is that circle of influence will grow, frustration will reduce, and you'll find peace of mind knowing that you've tried your best, no matter how things then transpire around you. And so this very, very deep insight of how to manage expectations can have a huge effect on one's mental state. So that's the second insight I'd like to share with you today. And the third and final insight that I'd like to share with you about mental health and mental wellness is it's not just regulation that has an effect on your mental health. It's not just expectation that has an effect on your mental health, but a huge problem in the world today is comparison. Because we're constantly comparing and competing with people around us. And therefore, it feels like no matter what we achieve, what we do, because we're constantly comparing with others, we always feel insecurity, we always feel inadequacy, and we always feel some kind of lacking in our own self, not because we're doing bad, but because we're constantly comparing with other people. In the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, Krishna says to Arjuna, perform your own purpose, your own duty, your own path, and don't try to compare or copy or compete with someone else. Even if sometimes your own path is difficult, live an authentic life and don't constantly compare yourself to others, because everyone has a unique journey in this world and everyone has a unique, what we call in Sanskrit, dharma. And dharma means one's purpose, one's meaning. Einstein, he very famously says, everybody is a genius. But if you convince a fish that it has to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking it's a failure. And what we often do is we try to copy someone else's life. I often give the analogy that imagine you come into an exam hall and you haven't done much revision and you're sitting next to the cleverest kid in the class and you think it must be divine arrangement. And then what you kind of proceed to do is kind of secretly copy the answer paper of the cleverest kid next to you. And at the end of the exam, you walk out with your head high, knowing that you copied that, answer paper perfectly. But then as soon as you come out of the exam hall, you realize everyone had a different question paper. Well, maybe that's what we try to do in life. We compare and we compete and we try to imitate someone else's path. And that brings so much anxiety and feeling of insecurity. It's amazing, they did a social survey and they asked people, you have two options. Option number one, you can earn $30,000. But the deal is that all your friends will earn $40,000. Okay, God. What's option B? So the option B is you can earn $20,000, but your friends will earn $15,000. Okay, option B. I'll take that one, And it's amazing. No matter how well we're doing in life, we always seem to compare with someone else and then bring ourselves down and find something wrong with ourselves. And therefore Krishna says to Arjuna that live an authentic life, follow your path, and learn to be inspired from others, but learn to live your own dharma. If I asked you this question, how does it feel to write with your non-writing hand? Can you tell me some of the words to explain that experience? How would it feel if you began writing with your non-writing hand? It would be awkward, frustrating, it would be slow, it would be difficult, painful, yeah, using synonyms of all the things. Yeah, it would be slow, you wouldn't be able to sustain it, you'd probably do a lousy job. Basically, these are the kind of feelings one will have when they begin living an inauthentic life, if they don't find their dharma, their purpose. Because we somehow try to live somebody else's purpose because we're constantly comparing. And so, what Krishna recommends to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita is analyze your own personality, understand what are your strengths and weaknesses, ask those who know you really, really well what they think your purpose is, and then attempt different things, and then finally in this way, find your own dharma, your own purpose, the own unique contribution that you're meant to be making. When you find something to do in life which encompasses your passion, your expertise, and which you then use in beautiful contribution to others, then that, Krishna says to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, is dharma. And when we live in dharma and stop trying to do someone else's dharma, then that brings so much mental peace, tranquility, stability, strength, and ultimately from that we strive. And therefore, in this way, the Bhagavad Gita is a very, very empowering book, because it's not just, people often think spiritual books are all about the afterlife or about divine connection. And of course, they have that dimension to them naturally. But these books are so powerful that they can empower us with insights of how to live the most powerful here lives right now. They teach us how to navigate the world. So in conclusion today, I just shared with you a little bit about mental fitness. Don't think that you are fit or you're not fit. Remember, it's always changing according to how much you invest in it. And in terms of investing in the mind, the ancient teachings of the East give us practices like meditation and mindfulness, but they also give us mindsets. And therefore, try to remember these three key words: regulation, living a balanced life, expectation. Always work within your circle of influence and don't constantly meditate on the circle of concern beyond your power. And number three, comparison. Live an authentic life, find your own dharma, and in that dharma, you will find that you have incredible mental strength and you strive. And in this way, the Bhagavad Gita gives us some insights into mental wellness. Thank you very much for your attention. So thank you so much for being patient and listening very attentively. I think we have like 10 minutes, is that correct? Yeah, we have 10-15 minutes. So if anyone has any questions they would like to ask, or perhaps I had raised some points that you may want to know more about. So we have 1 and then 2.
Hare Krishna Maharaji, thank you for giving such a wonderful lecture. I had a question where you shared the 2 circles, circle of concern and circle of influence. Yes. You said that in circle of influence, if we should do our karma, right? And then it expands. Is it just our input that we do, or the support that we get from that relationship or a friendship, does that expand it? Like, what expands it?
Yeah. So to work within one circle of influence means, of course, number 1, your effort. But when we couple our effort with making decisions about our habitat, about the people that surround us, about the lifestyle habits that we employ, about the food that we eat, about the noises or the opinions or the narratives that we hear, about the programs or things that we watch with our eyes, when we create a life in which there are very positive influences and a habitat and an environment which is very supportive to our endeavor, then what happens is, because we're working in the circle of influence, we're endeavoring, we're making the right choices to surround ourselves in the right habitat, then what will naturally happen from that endeavor is that your circle of influence will expand. But another major point that Krishna is making in the Bhagavad Gita is that people often define success by results. We think success is in a result. But actually Krishna flips that whole idea in the Bhagavad Gita and says, success is not the result. Success is the endeavor. Once one has made their best endeavor, once one has made their best effort, regardless of how things then transpire according to laws beyond our control, it doesn't really matter. It's already a success. And how do you know that you're making the best endeavor? You have the right intention, you give the right attention, and you practice the right actions. And once you've invested intention, attention, and action, you've done the best you can. And after that, however things then transpire is beyond your control, so know that it's already a success. But what happens in the world today is that people determine their self-value on results rather than endeavor. And that basically causes them to feel depressed and dejected when things don't transpire as they would have hoped. But they should know that if they made their best endeavor, it's already a success. Yeah.
My question was related to that question.
Okay, sure. And this one here as well.
What motivates you to, manage your expectations? Regulate comparison, like stand up before us, travel across the world. How do you stay motivated? What motivates you?
So what motivates me to share this with others and stay inspired? They say you earn a living by what you get, but you earn a life by what you give. I think our opportunity to make a contribution to people's lives, our opportunity to offer solutions which can help people live happier and healthier lives, our opportunity to go out in the world and make it a more beautiful place, I don't think there can be any more rewarding experience than that. Rabindranath Tagore, he said, I went to sleep and I dreamt that life is joy. I woke up and I realized that life is about serving. And then I started serving others and I realized that service is joy. And therefore, it's a beautiful life, a life in which we can find our passion and our expertise and use it in service to others. I can't think of anything more energizing than that. And so I guess as we travel the world, trying to share wisdom that breathes in a kind, compassionate, non-sectarian, logical way, not appealing to faith, religion, or any of those things, but just offering people empowering spiritual techniques, we see people's lives change. We see people find hope. We see people unleash potential. And we see incredible transformation where people become the best versions of themselves. And so I guess that keeps us going. And we continue to see that every single day. And it convinces us that this is not just a theology from thousands of years ago, but it's actually a living spiritual science that if people apply in their life will generate incredible transformation. and therefore the opportunity to be able to present that to the world. Einstein said, you can't solve the problems of the world with the same type of thinking that created them. So we're kind of convinced that we need a different approach to life. Because if we keep trying to solve the problems with the same type of thinking that created them, we're going to keep hitting a dead end. And therefore, especially with mental health, it seems like we need a different paradigm of approach to create real solutions. Thank you. Yes.
I'm just wondering, if we start to decrease the circle of concern, won't it make us selfish?
Yeah. In this context, the word concern is not used in that context. Here, what we're talking about when we talk about circle of concern is things that are just kind of, they're in our mind, like they're... So the point here is that, for example, when we say circle of concern encompasses, for example, the world situation. So am I standing here saying like we should just forget about the world now and just focus on our own lives? That would seem to be very, very selfish. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that yes, we're compassionate, we're sensitive, we're kind, we realize that there's a world situation out there that we should be aware of, yet only if we work in the circle of concern, a circle of influence, will we then be able to make a positive change. The global revolution begins with a personal resolution. And so, if you really want to improve the world situation, instead of watching the news every day and just getting really, really bewildered by what's going on in the world, we may do better to look within ourselves, empower ourselves, and then go out in the world and be an agent of positive change. And that's basically what we're saying. So a spiritualist or anyone who takes up this kind of path of wisdom doesn't become insensitive to the world, but rather they become more sensitive to the world, but they focus on themselves because they know if I don't invest in myself, what will I be able to offer to the world to make a difference? Does that clarify? Yeah, thank you. Nice question. Yes, any other? I see some hands here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I was wondering for the first point about regulation, what are some recommendations that you have about ways you can regulate?
Thank you so much. One thing we share with people is that time carries energy and location carries memory. In your life, if you start doing things at the same time every day, then what will happen is that time creates a memory. So what you'll find is that habits are much easier to form in your life if you do them at the same time every day. And one of the things we share with people, yes, take a deep breath, rise before the sun. When we joined the monastery, this is the first thing we were taught, that every single day when the sun rises in the morning, the sun is the center of all energy in the universe. And as you rise with the sun and spend those morning hours, you double your productivity, you triple your creativity, and you quadruple your energy. Just by using those morning hours to basically invest in many of these things that we talked about. And so what I would say is time carries energy. Time carries memory. So try to do things at the same time and specifically try to utilize the morning hours. Join the 5 a.m. club, as they say. And the other thing I would say is location carries energy. So for example, if you want to make meditation, for example, or mindfulness, a part of your routine, try to find a space in which you do that, because that space, that location carries an energy. And when you then enter into that location or that space, it becomes much easier to connect with that activity. And as we create those kind of impressions in our life, then we'll find that it's much easier to form habits and to actually factor in things in our life that we want to do every day, but which sometimes seem very difficult to do. So, but I'd recommend everyone to begin with a morning routine. What we tell people is try it. 1 hour, 20, 20, 20. 20 minutes, move. Get the blood circulation going. Do some stretching, do some yoga. 20 minutes, move. 20 minutes, learn. Study wisdom. Look back before you look forward. They say if you want a new idea, read an old book. So spend 20 minutes tapping into wisdom and see how that can orientate your life going forward. And 20 minutes, reflect or meditate. Just go internal and understand what dialogues, what's going on in your heart, and try to just disconnect. When we wake up in the morning, we have a rule: no devices for the first 4 hours of the day. No phones, no messaging, no emails. We even try not to talk to each other about anything we're going to do in the day. Because the first world that we have to deal with is our inner world. And when you deal with your inner world, when you fight that battle first, you can fight any battle in the world. Some ideas. Thank you. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your talk. Once you get to a point where you've done all that, and we really get to feel that union that you have, that yoga feeling that you get within yourself, and you start being able to see it, the absolute truth really for what it is, and see the spirit and everything, and see the energy through all the work, through the meditation, through the yoga. What is something you recommend to allow yourself to keep that ego and your spirit balanced and in check, so that you don't get to a point to where you feel like you want to tell everybody everything and you want them to listen and see you, because everything that you guys are teaching and everything that the universe shows you, it's true. What do you do to keep that balance so you don't, so the ego doesn't show its head?
So when you reach some level of spiritual accomplishment, how do you maintain your humility? How do you remain grounded and not feel yourself to be superior to others or to be in some way special? The first thing we do is we realize that in this world nobody is self-made. If I'm able to accomplish anything in my life, it's because there was wisdom, there were teachers, there was grace, there were powers beyond my control who brought me to where I am. And when one does that level of reflection, then one understands that actually far from becoming proud in one's accomplishment, one becomes actually more humble. Because one realizes, before I received all of that, where was I? Oftentimes these big like football stars, what they'll do is when they become really famous, they go back to their childhood park where they used to play football. And just being there in that moment, they realize I was just a kid in a park kicking a ball around. And then so many people helped me and they brought me to where I am now. And so we try to constantly do that reflection to understand that nobody is self-made, but rather we are the recipients of the kind help of many, many sources, and that brings a deep sense of humility. Of course, today we haven't delved into the spiritual aspects. We've focused mainly just on practical techniques. But in spiritual accomplishment, when one actually achieves divine union, then it's actually very, very humbling, because in that divine union, when one understands the greatness of divinity, then in comparison to the greatness of divinity, one feels themselves to be more and more insignificant. For example, if you see a mountain from very far away, it looks big. But as you start getting closer and closer to the mountain, its enormity grows. And in comparison, you feel yourself to be smaller and smaller. And similarly with divinity, it's like that. It's almost paradoxical, but when you get closer and closer to divinity, you feel yourself to be smaller and smaller and further away, because you realize your appreciation is growing. And so actually, if one is truly spiritually accomplished, humility will come about as a natural consequence because of these things. Thank you so much. I think time has gone, so thank you so much for your attention and for your attendance. Much appreciated. Thank you.